gotta tell somebody.
This is the best thing I've ever seen.
That. Let's talk about that.
You need this. Listen to this.
Memorable and exciting.
Well, then be less boring.
I'm going to tell everyone. Wait here.
Mighty remarkable, Big Daddy.
Remarkable.
Welcome to Remarkable, a podcast for B2B marketers that deconstructs the most iconic moments in film, television, pop culture, and advertising for a single purpose: to give you, the B2B marketer, the same storytelling techniques that the pros use. In each episode, you will learn techniques from Hollywood, Pixar, Marvel, and beyond, from Spielberg's hands to yours, bringing remarkable content ideas to you every single week. I'm Ian Faison, CEO of Caspian Studios. This is Remarkable. This week, we're talking about B2B marketing lessons from the U.S. Women's National Soccer Team.
That's what you call USA razzle-dazzle. Heart, spirit.
With the help of our special guest, former Director of Brand Strategy, Storytelling, and Advocacy at Cisco, Cindy, how are you?
Hi, Ian. Excited to be here. Thank you for having me.
Oh, excited to have you on the show. Excited to chat soccer or football, depending on where you are in this world, and everything in between. So, Cindy, why the heck did you pick U.S. Women's National Soccer Team to talk about today?
I am a Latina, and I love watching football or soccer. And I just thought, looking at the past few months of what U.S. Women's National Team has accomplished at the Olympics, there's nothing short of remarkable. Lots of amazing feats. So I thought it would be fun to talk about some of the relevant lessons from soccer and marketing.
Of which there are many. And I'm a huge soccer fan as well. So, or football, depending on where you are in the world. And very excited to dig into to the U.S. Women's Team today. Zooming out for a second, you just finished up a stint at Cisco, leading brand strategy, storytelling, and advocacy. Can you tell us a little bit about sort of like what type of things you thought about and strategically how you thought about content and brand and all that at Cisco?
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah, I was at Cisco for 5 years, and I had the privilege of leading a fantastic group of teams, right, in customer advocacy, brand strategy, storytelling, employer brand, thought leadership, all with a focus on cybersecurity. So one of the things that we often looked at is how do we tell compelling stories, whether that is through the lens of our customers or through some evidence-based reporting, but how do we create content strategies that earn the trust of our audiences, and how do we amplify and connect it with the people that we are marketing to?
Meredith, what the heck is the U.S. Women's National Soccer Team?
So I was surprised the team has only been around since 1985.
That is Meredith O'Neill, our amazing producer extraordinaire.
And I was like, how long has the men's team been around for? And theirs has been around since 1916. But so to go way back, they formed fairly recently. And it was because the U.S. was invited to compete in a tournament in Italy called the Mondialito. Then just 6 years later, they won the first ever Women's World Cup in 1991. And one of the players then, Shannon Higgins-Swarovski, who had joined the team in 1987, said it was really their mentality that set them apart from the other teams. She said, all of us, we had to fight for what we got. We had a mentality that we weren't going to lose and we were going to fight. But there was basically no financial opportunity for them. And I feel like that's something we see in women's sports a lot compared to men's sports. Players were only getting paid $10 a day. Another one of the players, Tracy Bates-Leon, said there was absolutely no ulterior motive other than dying to represent your country. So pay was definitely an issue that would come up much later. But it wasn't until after the U.S. took home the gold against China in the 96 Olympics that they started to get many more commercial opportunities. I remember watching that when I was in, I think, maybe middle school. And I was like in love with Mia Hamm, who really just like took off, and she was a forward for the team. And so she had been picked up by Nike and had been in a bunch of their ads.
The best football player in America will not be seen on television this Sunday. Not while there's a Pro Bowlers tour. Because all the networks agree, the best football player in America isn't good for ratings.
And she sort of became a real star, and things sort of like took off. So especially leading into the 1999 World Cup, which had record audiences both in person and in TV viewership. And I remember that game because that's when Brandi Chastain made her iconic penalty kick, and she scored against China. She rips off her jersey and has it in her hand, and she just like drops to her knees and is like, yeah. And it was such like an iconic image for the time.
As soon as that kick left my foot, and it felt like forever, and I see it going into the goal, and honestly I feel like the ball's not turning, it's not spinning, it's just heading towards the goal, and then it hits the net, and literally it was chaos. It was insanity.
And so they're just making these like huge moments in women's sports history. And since then, the team has won 4 women's World Cup titles, 5 Olympic gold medals, among a bunch of other accomplishments. They're considered the most successful team in women's soccer globally. And I wanted to highlight one other thing, which is like more recently, like I mentioned, the pay discrepancy, but in 2019, the team filed a lawsuit against the US Soccer Federation for gender discrimination. They wanted equal pay and treatment as the male athletes. So they actually won in this landmark settlement in 2022, and they got equal pay for the women's team. So they've become really powerful advocates for gender equality and social justice. And as part of that, they created another brand as sort of like an extension of their team. And that was in 2019. And it's called USA, which is named after the sort of favorite cheer rallying cry. And it's an initiative that works to advocate for gender equality and treatment, both on and off the field. And I do want to touch on sort of what they've been up to more recently with you and lean on you a little bit, Cindy, because I know we talked about that recently, but just to sort of draw a couple lessons from their early days, which is like start with the love of the game. So start with if we were to compare it to like content marketing or marketing in general, I think having a love for what you do is super important. Creating a strong identity for them, is building this belief in gender equality and equal treatment. And so I think like having a strong brand identity is super important. Championing social causes, if you have a social cause that, you believe in, championing that cause, and then engaging digitally. Like a lot of the individual players have a strong social media presence and are sort of across many different channels and are super engaging with fans. But Cindy, I wanted to get back to what I wanted to ask you. I know in a previous call, we had sort of talked about a new coach that they got this year and sort of why that sort of change in leadership was so important. Can you catch us up on like how they were doing before Emma Hayes and how Emma Hayes' leadership sort of changed the game for them?
Yeah. Thank you, Meredith. And I just want to say something really important on your comment about the equal pay, right? It's incredible that only in 2022 that came to fruition, right? Like so many years and still women are trying to fight for equal pay. And I just saw a note on LinkedIn the other day that women in Canada are getting pay raises here soon. And why? Because there's a new legislation that mandates equal pay for both genders, right? So I'm amazing that we're still trying to fight that. But going back to Emma Hayes, she was important.
And I think it's important saying here too that we're the only country, or America is the only country, right? So everyone else is still not in that way, to my knowledge, right? So it's like, not only is it just was that first, but like everyone else in the world is not like that. And I think that like we have like by far and away the most iconic women's soccer brand and culture. And now, from the pay side of things as well, like this team matters a lot to global soccer, and it's a big mantle. And like every national team in the world has their own sort of, their own amount of pressure on them, on the men's side. I mean, you could go on and on and on and on about, people taking this stuff very, very, very seriously, right? Like, but in America, like the men's side has historically not been very good. And on the women's side, we've been the best in the world basically since it started, right? Or since, the organized version of this, as you mentioned, Meredith. And so I think it's important to realize, like, not only were we sort of like the best in the best team in the world for the past since the late 80s, but also leading the way on all sorts of other things, including sponsorships, advertisements, huge brand partnerships with like key athletes, discourse around the team, and then now equal pay. So it's like they've been leading from the front. And I think that leads into when you are the top dog, it's a very different, world when all of a sudden you might not be. Enter exactly what Cindy's going to talk about.
Yeah, and you have iconic figures, right? Like Megan Rapinoe, who's just here north in Seattle, who championed that, right?
The United States women's national team has won 4 World Cup championships. We've won 4 Olympic gold medals on behalf of this great country. We've filled stadiums, we've broken viewing records, we've sold out our jerseys, all the popular metrics by which we are judged. And yet, despite all of this, we're still paid less than our male counterparts.
So going back to relatable things in marketing, right? You need to have a champion. You need to have somebody who's the face of certain fights to coalesce things to happen. So Emma Hayes, you were asking about Emma Hayes. So she was just in Portland this past weekend on a game. It was really good. She was welcomed with lots of love and warmth here. She was coaching teams in Europe 90 days before she got the baton of, hey, do you want to do this U.S. national women's soccer team for the Olympics? And it was very evident, right, that she was a coach and leader that inspired the team to drive to action. And I think that's really important in marketing organizations, right? To lead with a theme, with a leadership style that creates empathy and allows others to do their best, not a culture of fear, right? So that the team can feel empowered to do their best and truly shine. So she also made some very unpopular choices, right? Alex Morgan, who was like, everybody thought she was going to be called in the roster, she was left out. So she had new creative ideas that she wanted to try, took some calculated risks. And like we say, nothing tried, nothing gained. And you can see the results, right? So in marketing too, it's important to have a leader that drives confidence in their teams and that people can follow and do their best.
Yeah. Well, so I think it's worth sort of taking a step back on this too. So where the program was, I think is important because they're essentially the best team in the world, again, since like the late 80s. And like you could quibble and there are other teams that have won certain things and there's sort of like ebbs and flows, but overall, generally speaking, been the best team in the world with like the most talented players and some of the most globally recognized, if not the most globally recognized stars in the women's game, with some exceptions, et cetera. And again, I think this is an important sort of parallel to marketing, right? It's like if you are a top brand or a top company and you're sort of trying to protect your image, like this is a similar sort of scenario, right? So what happened was there's a lot of these aging players and a lot of these like really young players are coming in, but they like quote unquote weren't ready. So it was all leading up towards the World Cup. And basically what happened, they had this coach named Vlatko and widely considered by a lot of people to not be the strongest tactical coach. And he's in a tough spot in his defense that he had all these sort of aging players. And he sort of was basically said like that the young players weren't ready to go, right? And they got smoked in the World Cup by our standards. So lost like the earliest exit in the World Cup, lost in the round of 16. And like, it's a game of inches, right? Like, 6 inches difference on one of the shots that one of the team makes, like the US goes through or whatever. So it's a game of inches, right? But, so what the US Soccer Federation did is they fire the coach and they go and do this search. And so Emma Hayes was coaching at Chelsea. She grew up in England. She came over to the US. I believe she went to college here and she might have played in college, I forget. But so she has like ties to America. She went to college here, and she's very, has been very flattering of, she's not American, but a proud American. And they end up, reaching out to her about this job. And this is widely considered like, this is a coup. She's probably the best coach in the world, if not one of the best coaches in the world, coaching day in and day out for a, Premier League team in Chelsea, and I don't know how many championships she won there, but she had one of the best teams in the world in Chelsea. And to go from that to a national team job, which is much less prestigious, to go to coach for a national team.
I didn't realise how difficult it would be once I made the decision to go to the US at the end of the season. It's challenging to manage everything, a locker room, just everything, the expectations, the press every week. I think that took its toll on me, definitely. So to get over the line with the backdrop of all of those things, I felt like I could leave and go and keep my head high and give everything I could into my new job.
But there's a caveat that it's less work. You do less stuff. And she said, to people, she's like, I can actually see my son every day. And he's really excited about like having mommy home more often. I think she has like an 8-year-old son.
Talked a little bit about that balance as well in a previous call, right? The importance of a work-life balance. And a lot of these players in soccer have children, right? They bring them to the games, right? And are able to coexist with their athlete profession, and their mom job.
And for those women, they have both, right? They have 2 jobs. And so I think it's an important moment in, some people said it's sort of like the lowest moment in U.S. women's soccer is like this moment after getting jettisoned from the World Cup. But they were sort of going into this Olympics, and basically they didn't have a coach. They didn't have anything. They just came off, this really bad performance. All these stars are aging. This, younger group, everyone's sort of like, can they do it? And sort of a lot of generational claims like, can the Zoomers get it done? Basically, do they care enough about the badge? Which is, again, this is like what the pundits say. It's all dumb, but this is what they say. And then you have this moment where they bring in Emma Hayes. And instantly, you see the changes on the pitch.
If you ever watch how Emma Hayes, what she says before games, what she says after games, she's the type of coach that invokes that, and it's contagious. It's contagious to her players. And that's because at the end of the day, she steps out in front of the team. And that's a powerful leader. Mm-hmm. And she does that both on and off the field. And we know how powerful it is for this team to have an advocate, not just as a coach, being the best coach in the world, but as a person leading this team and what they care about off the field as well. And Emma Hayes has shown above and beyond that she cares for her players, she cares for the women's game, and she cares deeply about winning and about leaving a legacy. And those are all characteristics that, to me, say U.S. Women's National Team.
Like instantly. She comes in, she's asking the players to do certain things. The captain of the team is publicly talking about how we just wanted a coach that would like coach us, which is a pretty damning sort of effect on this other guy. And he's probably a nice enough guy. I don't know. But I think it speaks to this sort of like a changing in the guard and how big of a deal, bringing in someone like Emma Hayes, who is extremely good tactician, into being sort of, like a people manager and being able to manage the players. And Sydney, to your point, what she does is she goes all in on the younger players. And mostly she just played her team. Like she essentially just picked a group of players that she sort of went with for the entire Olympics. And then they end up winning the Olympics and getting the gold medal.
75 days later, I'm standing in the Parc des Princes and watching my team put gold medals around their neck was unbelievable, to be honest with you.
And the biggest players in the tournament were all the young players that sort of had been much chagrined and asked if they could do it. So this group of young players that people had sort of written off and said that they weren't ready, which was clearly not true. And it's just like, it's kind of a perfect marketing sort of metaphor to come and look at and say, you come in as a new CMO or new marketing leader or whatever, or new in your functional area, new head of brand or head of content or whatever it is, and you can come in and really like make a huge impact. And there's a few things that she did that we're going to talk about here. And you can take a team that is underperforming and turn it all around. And that's like the name of the game, right?
And giving a chance to people who might have been overlooked, right? Like they proclaimed themselves as the triple espresso, right? The front line with Rodman and Sophia Smith, who plays for the Thorns, right? And Mallory Swanson. They were so energetic. They played together well. They scored 10 out of the 12 U.S. goals. They outscored every other nation in the Olympics, right? So giving them a chance. And Sophia Smith was in an interview here in Portland, and they were asking her about, are you going to be the next leader? The next step is like, hey, I am now. I don't need to wait, right? Look at me now. I am capable of doing that now. And that was before the Olympics, which happens often in marketing teams, right? People get stuck in a different role and they might not see that their skills and capabilities are able to surpass them. And we talked a little bit about that, Ian, as well, right? In soccer, it's a team sport, right? In order to win, you need to really communicate well with all the people that are playing at different roles, right? Whether you're in the front line, a midfielder, a goalie, is it possible for a goalie to score a goal? Yes, sure it is, but most likely not, right? So same in marketing, right? You have people playing revenue, demand gen, or thought leadership, brand awareness, and product marketing. And it's the communication across all of those that will make the team successful.
Yeah, I think one of the biggest things that Emma Hayes did when she came into the squad, this is going to sound very technical from a soccer standpoint, but I'll explain it, is what they would do a lot of is sort of like hope and pray crosses, where they would dribble the ball down like the right side or the left side, and then just kick the ball up and hope that somebody could head it in or kick it in, or, it bounces out and somebody can do that, which is sort of a spammy tactic in a way, where it's like, if your team is a bunch of really tall people that can jump high, that might be a great tactic. And the US is an extremely athletic team. And so maybe you could look at your people and say, yeah, we could do that. And immediately what Emma Hayes did is she comes in and they immediately stop doing that. And instead of going to the end line and trying to just cross it, you can see them getting to that point and trying to take on their defender one-on-one, or try to like use the space near the goal and things like that, and use their skills that are better suited, which is they're extremely fast, they're extremely direct, they have really good control with the ball. All three people in the front three are really good at shooting. And again, this is the same group of people, with the exception of, I think, Mallory Swanson, that Vlatko could have used in that same exact way, same exact team. And she used them completely differently to focus on their skills. And I think there's a huge marketing sort of takeaway there, is like, I think a lot of teams sort of adopt a playbook and try to run that playbook when they don't have the people on the team to do that. Like, for example, we make a lot of shows with marketing teams that they try to put people as sort of like on-air talent that might not be the best at that, or they try to not use people within their organization as on-air talent that are clearly suited to do that. And like, both of those are equally bad mistakes, right? Trying to take someone and like turn them into, a spokesperson for your company who's not really exciting, energetic, and enthusiastic about what they're doing is probably not going to work really well unless your audience is looking for a certain type of, interaction or something like that. And I see that all the time. And by the same token, you have someone who's like really exciting and energetic about a field, and they're having them write. And I'm like, you don't get any of the passion. You don't get any of the excitement. You don't get any of that bubbly personality. It just looks like words on a page. Like, those are just like some simple things that you can do with your marketing or your content to just use what is at your advantage.
That's so right, Ian. Many years ago, I won't say when, I was a new leader, and I had this fabulous, passionate, energetic person, but she wasn't hitting the metrics, right? She wasn't hitting the KPIs that we had. And it took me lots of conversations until I'm like, she is fabulous. She's in the wrong role, right? Like, she is just not in the right role. We moved her into a new role, and lo and behold, right, fantastic contributor. So that's an important element of a leader, understanding who you have on your team, what motivates and drives them, and how can you create an environment where they can perform and outperform. And sometimes you don't have those levers as a leader, but when you can, then yeah, absolutely. Great lesson there.
Yeah. And I think one of the biggest mistakes that people make with their, like, especially with their senior executives, is not using them in content. And it's like so obvious. It's like, this is one of the most important people in the company. If your CEO or like whatever functional head is who you're selling to. So if you're selling to CIOs, your CIO. If you're selling to CMOs, your CMO. Like, getting that person on camera and having them talk about stuff is really important. It's like incredibly important. Having them go on podcasts and shows and having them talk to their peers and having them discuss things, like, it's really, really important. And if you go ask any sales rep, hey, would you want your CIO to be on the sales call? They would be like, of course. Like, that would be so helpful. You can talk about how we use our own product. You can talk about all that. But yet, we don't do the one-to-many version of that, which is like recording them saying those same exact things and then publishing them. And like, to me, that's just such a missed opportunity.
Yeah. And every leader or, every influencer, right, likes things a little bit different, right? I've learned, some of them, I needed to sit down with them so I can capture and then retell the story. Some others are fantastic at living it, right? It's like, hey, invite me to a podcast and then you can create whatever content you want out of that. A short video, a longer blog post, social components, quotes that you can use in sales enablement pieces, like create it once and use them multiple ways.
And I think that the piece about using your talent the right way, I think a lot of times where people get in trouble with that is that they see a skill set that's like, they're also good at it, right? Where it's like, oh, this person's a really great writer, or they're really good at like email copy, so I'm just going to have them do that. But they would actually be better at writing social copy or something like that. That like, even though they're good at one, that they could actually be even better at something else that's more high valuable. And like, that's like part of the Emma Hayes thing is Trinity Rodman flying down the right side of your team is super valuable because she's like one of the best in the world and she's fast and athletic and all that. Having her spam a cross in to nobody, even though she's good at that too, doesn't help your team. That's not a more valuable action. Whereas her trying to take on the defender one-on-one, if she does win, and now she's driving at the goal with nobody in between her and the goal, that's way more valuable. And like, I think that that's part of like what marketing is about, is figuring out what are the more high leverage things that you can do that make a huge difference. One of the ones for me that I've noticed is me writing our company newsletter in my voice has been transformational for our business versus when we did our newsletters coming from just a random person at the company or on the marketing team. Like, those are little things that take a lot of like my time or organizational time or things like that. But it's way more valuable having me say the things. Like, that's like the same, that's the equivalent of Trinity Rodman, like spamming crosses, right? It's like, don't do the things that are less valuable.
It becomes also more genuine.
Yeah.
Like Anne Handley, she has a fortnightly newsletter that comes out. And I always look forward to reading her newsletter because it's so personable, right?
Yep.
Like, I've met her, I've presented at her events in the past, and I know her, so I could hear her speak, right? Her marketing lessons as she writes now. Obviously, she's a fantastic writer. She's done 2 books on Anybody Can Write or Everybody Can Write. I think it's what they're called. But try to find where your people are the most valued in there. And I also think that in content strategy, you need to really start an understanding your audience, right? Now, I'm biased because early in my high-tech career, I was in product marketing. So understanding your buyer audience is super important, right? We lose sight some of that in our content marketing strategy and just create because we can create. But you have to delight your audiences and you can create content that really appeals to them. If you're just genuinely curious to try to understand them and grok with them. That's a term that's used in pragmatic marketing, to really know them, empathize with them, can finish their sentences, right? You know where they like to go on vacations. You know what their pet peeves are. And so, yeah, there's another saying in product marketing called nihito. Those are words that I live by. And nihito is Nihito. Nothing interesting happens in the office or remote office nowadays. But that just really represents an invitation, right? For all of us to get curious, to know our customers, to talk to the practitioners that we market to understand the decision makers in the industry, to learn from our competitors, right? Look at industry trends so that we can be nimble and pivot fast. And that's all of those things, bringing it back to soccer, are things that the U.S. women's national team has done, right? They've looked at our competitors, not cheating like other nations did.
That's exactly right. Like our neighbors to the north.
Yeah. Yeah. But looking at your competitors, looking at the moves, studying them, looking at the audience that you want to appeal to, that's really important in content strategy.
Yeah, I think there's another takeaway for me, which is I'm not a very competitor obsessed person by my nature, but I think there's one thing that is a good parallel to the women's national team, which is every team that we played in the World Cup or we played in the Olympics is absolutely terrified of the front three of our country sprinting after them with their defenders on their heels, right? It's like the most terrifying thing in the world is, Trinity Rodman sprinting at their backline, right? And I think about this with competitors with your content campaign. If you were to release something and truly, like I talk about the edutainment graph, like rated on a scale of, 1 out of 10 educational, 1 out of 10 entertaining, right? Like, so rank your content on the graph. And before you even plan to make something, is your competitor going to see this and be like, oh, I'm so jealous. This is great. Or is it just something that they're going to all right. And like, if you can do the things that put the fear in the heart of your competitors, that's what you want to do, right? Accentuate, the things about your product or your, whether it's positioning or otherwise, and creating content or advertising or whatever it is. And they're probably not too worried about you just like running your PPC ads better. You know what I mean? Like they're probably not terrified of you maximizing, your spend on AdWords.
Just avoiding the scalable, next gen, AI powered, but saying it in real words and using humor. Oh my gosh, we don't use humor a lot. And I think we should use more of that.
Oh, I couldn't agree more. And it's hard to do, right? Like if you're just, hey, be funny, like that's pretty hard to do. You got to
come off cheesy. Yeah.
But the only way, this is why comics are notoriously very all over the place, is because it is so hard to get up and stand in front of a group of people with the expectation that you're going to make them laugh, right? So it's supposed to feel scuzzy. It's supposed to feel in your gut like there's a reason why, right? Trying to be funny, like you will fail a lot, And it's like, but that doesn't mean you just don't try to do it. And so many teams are like, we just did this great episode on Hamburger Helper making a rap video. And it's like, they took every precaution to not put it out there. And then finally they did it. And it was this massive success. And I was joking. I'm like, this thing almost didn't go live. And for what reason? Because like people were going to be mad about Oven Mitt making a rap video. It makes no sense. Like, what are you actually scared of? Just like, we're just scared innately of like, this is not going to be funny. Well, that's just, nobody cares.
Well, I tell you, one of the considerations that I've taken when we try to incorporate humor is this going to resonate well in multicultural audiences, right? Because certainly humor does not, I wasn't born here in the States. I didn't grow up with a lot of the humor here. Now I've been acquainted, I've been in front of it enough that SNL now is funny, right? But it was like, no, SNL is not funny. Or like there's some movie, culture plays a big role in humor, and you don't want to offend. You don't want to sound different. So when you're dealing with a big brand or global companies, those are some of the considerations that perhaps prevent us from not trying. So when you test it, test it in an audience that has multicultural background so that your humor goes well and has the intended consequences.
Yeah, or even better, do something different for all of your different multinational audiences. Yeah, they say humor doesn't travel, right? So if you think the movie Step Brothers is funny, it's like maybe you don't think that's funny if you live in Finland or whatever it is. Yeah, it's a great point. I think
that Napoleon Dynamite is not funny. I don't get it. So, but that's another topic of discussion.
That's funny. All right, how do you think about the ROI of content?
With apologies, right, to my demand gen counterparts, I am truly a firm believer that you just can't measure the impact of your content just in terms of funnels and MQLs and SQLs, right? There needs to be really a healthy balance of brand awareness and thought leadership efforts with the middle and bottom of the funnel tactics, and a combination of both of those. And Ian, you're going to laugh because I can show you my LinkedIn had this term for many years ago, brand gen. And I think, I'm being smart. I'm coining this term, brand and demand gen, right? And then I was preparing for this podcast, listening to your serialized content framework, which, by the way, audience, you guys need to listen to that. It's fantastic. And you talk about brand gen. So I highly recommend people reading that. It has some fabulous, great ideas of how to drive the pipeline and do it in a way where you're creating some of those thought leadership efforts to earn the trust of your audiences while at the same time giving them something that's useful in return and aligned to what you're trying to accomplish in that business. So long answer to your question about how to measure ROI, but hopefully there's some nuggets of good info there.
Yeah, I saw someone post earlier today, and it got me thinking for this episode of it was something to the effect of everything for the community. And I was just thinking if we all took a community first mindset, and your job in marketing was just to delight those people with as many things that can delight them as possible, how quickly it would change your thinking. And that is better than features and benefits. Like it is, Yeah. And anyways, I was just thinking that if we were making stuff that if you just flipped it upside down, instead of how do we talk about ourselves, how do we just delight other people? Yeah. What else? What cooler stuff would we come up with?
We don't always have the liberty to do those things, though, right? In marketing organizations, often it's, budgets gets approved depending on, what are some of your results. And that's when we need to be really creative about how do we showcase the results of some of those community building, thought leadership, brand awareness efforts, because there are some metrics that are associated with that can give indications of success.
I totally hear what you're saying, and I'm curious to your experience on this, because we all look up to Yeti, we all look up to Nike, we all look at to Apple, all these brands that all they do is liquid death. We all look up to those people, right? And yet, anything that's remotely like any of the stuff that they do, then we get a no on. I don't get it. It's not about money though, always. It's about a desire to do something different in any other way, and that gets crushed.
I think it depends on the leader, right? You sometimes get those visionary leaders, right? Get that balance, and they want to serve a portion of that, save a portion of their budget to do those explorations, to do those kind of intriguing campaigns. But sometimes the pressure is high, right? To just do the demand gen. And I'm that work is going to continuously get harder if you don't spend any of the money on the top of funnel, right? Awareness, preparation, earning trust. So yeah, reality is different.
I know. It's sad.
It is.
Do you have a favorite piece of content or a campaign that you've worked on over the years?
So, I have a few favorite ones, and see if I can roll them out quickly. One of them is at Cisco, I created with a team of folks the security outcomes report. And I love this campaign because it was broad, it was global, 5,000 security professionals, and gives us lots of content, right, that we can then divide and create all types of content strategies, right, from influencer marketing to social media to sales enablement. Like, it was broad, great. It also allowed me to work with some fabulous people in the industry. So, it's all about people. So if you get to work on big projects that have massive impact with the right people, amazing. But also, what we were after into this is to give practical advice to people on what really matters in security. What are some of the things that you're doing to evidently, right, like with evidence-based, can lead to better outcomes in security. So it wasn't just another survey, right? It was something to move the needle in practitioner side. So that was really, really, I love that project. We did 3 years of that. Another project was we created a series of videos using humor. This was a brand in transition. It was, I was at Tripwire, now they're called Fortra. But we weren't known in our Chief Information Security Officer cycles, which was our buyer persona. So we created a series of videos using this person called John Powers, and he basically got powers by very elegantly and subtly using some of our solutions, right? But it was about how he was a hero of cybersecurity hero, right, through those videos. They're really fun and great to create. And then lastly, during my last role here at Cisco, I worked with some of the most trusted and well-respected brands, right, such as Marriott, the NFL, Swire, Coca-Cola, Goldman Sachs, The Ohio State University, Qdoba, Room and Board, Hitachi, and just working with customers is just, it feels my soul, right? When you're able to move the needle, learn from them, and get the opportunity to get to know them one-on-one. So those are 3 of my favorite content marketing projects.
What else? Any other things, how you get those types of projects approved, especially when you're at bigger companies and navigating that and trying to do creative work when it feels like you might be pushing a ball uphill?
Yeah, let me try to think here, Ian, because that's always hard, right? So I started with some of this with sparkle of a vision, right? What could we do differently? Can we stand out? We're talking about our competitors, right? What hasn't been done in the past? And who do we need to partner with to get that done? I know you all sell to enterprises. And one of the things that we look at is, where are we weak so that we can partner with people who are strong in that area? So I have a handful of agencies and vendors, right, that I've carried through different organizations that have made me successful, have made me shine, and for that have made my organization shine. So building those strong relationships is really important. And I think the sparkle of the idea, yes, we've done it, have done it, this is what it could look like, that could ease the way for getting some of those creative ideas approved.
Cindy, anything we missed so far? Any other thoughts on soccer or marketing or content?
I hope people start watching more women's soccer. It's a fantastic sport. I think there's lots of other lessons. So if you are a soccer fan and want to learn more about the lessons with marketing and soccer, ping me on LinkedIn. As you can tell, Ian and I can talk about soccer for many, many more hours.
Seriously. Me too. It's so fun. It's just so great. And if you want to get started with the women's team, because they are really amazing. This is a great time to start because this team is super young, super fun, best attacking trident in the world. It's great. And they score goals. It's great. Shout out Naomi Gurma. We have the best defensive player in the world too. So, it's a great time. Cindy, wonderful having you on the show. Thanks so much for joining. Any final thoughts? Anything to plug?
Well, I just say I'm really excited about being here. So thank you, Ian and Meredith, for having me. I am looking to my next adventure, right? So I would love to find a high-tech company with an incredible culture where people are empowered to do their best work and an environment where success is achieved through respect and empathy, where diversity is embraced and celebrated, and love to continue to lead high-performing teams, right? Whether that's in content strategy, corporate communications, customer advocacy, thought leadership, brand strategy. And I know it's a tough market out there. So if people are interested in joining my network and I can be of service to you, please don't hesitate to reach out. I hope you find some valuable lessons in this podcast. And it was a pleasure, Ian and Meredith, to be here with you today.
Thanks so much, Cindy. Take care.
Thank you.
Well, that's it for today. I hope you got some good ideas for your B2B content. Thank you for listening to Remarkable. I'm Ian Faison, CEO of Caspian Studios. Remarkable is created by the team at Caspian Studios, B2B podcast as a service. Caspian also creates fiction series for B2B companies, so if you want a business thriller, you can learn more at caspianstudios.com. Hollywood-style storytelling for B2B. And in today's episode, you heard from myself, Ian Faison, and Meredith O'Neill, senior producer here at Caspian Studios. Remarkable was produced this week by Meredith O'Neill, mixed by Scott Goodrich, and our theme song is Solomon by Falak. Be remarkable and rise above the noise.